Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another Nacho Tuesday. And today I have Jacopo with Dokin. And without further ado, we would love if you can give us a quick elevator pitch for what your company does.
Yes, thanks, Andy. So Dokin is a data platform integrated in spreadsheets. We allow marketing teams, sales, operations to sync live data from their CRMs, their marketing channels, their SQL databases into Google Sheets. So thanks to our ability to connect this data, these teams can automate their reporting and create live and dynamic dashboards in their spreadsheets.
Perfect. So what got you down this path in your career? You and I were able to meet, luckily, because you were in New York last week, so we're able to kind of catch up on everything. But for the uninitiated watching today, we'd love to hear more about your career and kind of your backstory and how you came down this path.
Yeah, sure. So I have more of a finance background. I've always worked with startups. I started out at Augury in London. Augury is an advertising technology company. So back then in London, I was their first finance hire. And that's really when I started to get interested into startups and really seeing also the importance of leveraging data, especially marketing and go-to-market data in the right way. Then I moved to Paris and I joined BlaBlaCar. BlaBlaCar may not be that known here in the US, but it's a pre-IPO company backed by Silicon Valley VCs operating out of France. It's very big in Europe and South America. And I worked there 7 years. I was the head of FP&A. FP&A stands for financial planning and analysis. So I was the one in charge with forecasts, budgeting, financial reporting, all of that. And so in that position, I was working a lot with marketing teams, operations teams, strategy teams, and stuff like that. And every time I was building reports or dashboards, I had to extract data from their own software, rework in spreadsheets, create formulas. And the problem with that was that I was never working with live data. So as soon as I had data changing in one of the software or in another spreadsheet, I had to do everything from the beginning, everything from scratch.
Jeez.
And so with another colleague from BlaBlaCar, Virginie, we started looking for solutions. We really couldn't find one that was suiting us. And so that's when we decided to create our own. And so we started working on Dokin a bit more than a year ago. We released our first beta in February of 2023. And yes, started out with our MVP back in May.
Perfect. How's the launch been so far? Have you learned anything along the way?
Yes, plenty. It's been it's a crazy journey when you launch your startup, because you try so many things, you iterate a lot. We speak with so many different people, and it's a real roller coaster. There's times when you think you have figured something out, times when you really have to start from scratch. I would say the particular thing is that you really have to talk a lot with people. I think this adventure really taught me that you have to speak with as many people as possible. Business is really about people, so that you can figure out their problems and see a solution that's really suitable for them.
Yep. And how do you, I guess, delineate between, good feedback and maybe some feedback that might not be as qualified? Because to your point, a lot of people give you feedback from so many different directions and everything. It's kind of hard to filter through all of it.
Yeah, it's really easy, I think, at the beginning when you're trying to make the first revenue, to build a product that suits every request and everybody. You just want to make the sale. In our case, what's really helpful is that we've been through the problem ourselves. So we lived that. So we're able to keep a vision that is in line with the experience and what we've also heard from our first beta users. But yeah, it's still important to keep an eye on on adjacent possibilities, on different targets, for example, or maybe different pivots that you could do to your product, and also to see the trends in the market to make sure that you really hit that product market fit. That at the beginning it's very hard to keep. So I think the vision of the founders is really important to make sure that you're not easily influenced by any type of request.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. And the best entrepreneurs I've always seen, and I've interviewed a lot of great people. they usually really come from understanding the problem. So they work really close to the situation at hand. And many of them, have been they realize the problem themselves because they've been working in the industry or a particular industry niche. And, they understand, as maybe even a customer themselves potentially for this problem in the past, the best way to potentially go about solving that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I think it's easier when you live the problem yourselves. Then, of course, I think there's many people that are able to start a business even without having lived the problem firsthand, but they have a good understanding of the market or the product that they're selling. But it's easier when you live the problem.
Yep, definitely. I guess what are the tips you have for startups to get their early initial sales traction, and what should they do with that early revenue?
Well, I think, we made plenty of mistakes along the way, and I'm sure we're still making them. But yeah, my 2 cents is really, as I was saying, I think business is about people. So you should be at the beginning having an agenda that is full with meetings with your potential customers. So you really want to speak with your ideal target audience to understand their problems, build a solution that really answers that problem, see the existing solutions that are available, and see if you can offer something different, something more for them. And I think at the beginning it's all about that. If you're able to make the first revenues, you should reinvest it in activities that allow you to find the right channels to make the sales. It's normal to try a lot of things. So you might start with reaching out on people on LinkedIn, emailing. Maybe in some cases, some people are good with advertising, and so they do some Facebook ads, Google ads. Fine to try many things. It's important to understand which ones are working better, to speaking with the right audience, with your right potential customers. And when you start making your first revenue, really reinvest in those.
Yeah, and sometimes it's important to do the hard things first, right? So maybe even if you have to pick up the phone, and as another person we interviewed, Coco, said, a lot of people don't even need cold calls these days anymore. Sometimes you just have to be proactive to reach out one-to-one and get those first initial early sales on board, and then kind of grow from there. But those, all comes down to those personal relationships, and even if it's doing the one-to-one sales, you're still learning a lot from those customers when you're talking to them initially.
Absolutely. And I think that everyone is really open to discuss when you come to them asking for how you can help them. People are very open to give you 15 minutes, 30 minutes of their time when you're offering to understand their problem and help them solve them. So it's really, as you said, often it's very manual. You have to reach out to so many people on LinkedIn or via email. But yeah, you don't have to be afraid to go out there and speak with people. It's really about that.
And having been somebody that's worked in the financial industry for many years, cash flow is the lifeblood of a company. What kind of trends have you seen for companies that are operating in a financially healthy way, and what kind of tips could you offer for SMB owners to better manage their cash flow?
So yeah, I think it's cash is the most important thing at the end of the day. When you have, even if you're a startup or a bigger company, at the end it all comes down to cash. When I was working at BlaBlaCar, we had one of our values was be lean, go far, and it was a principle and approach that as managers we had to really live by. Meaning that you should always act like if you're a bootstrapped company. Even if you're backed by VCs, you should always make investments that have sense, that can really optimize the growth of the company and your effectiveness as a team. And I think that it's a very healthy way to go on about your cash and your cash flow, because it gives you this approach of treating your cash as a limited resource. And that's something that helped us a lot when I was at BlaBlaCar, because as a company we were able to really go through a lot of difficult waves, because you never know when a new black swan could arise. For example, a big hit was COVID, but we had the right resources in place, the right cash in place to go through that. And yeah, every company goes through the ups and downs, and having a healthy way of managing cash, it's really gonna help you go through those. And this is especially true now that I'm starting out Dokin. Keeping this bootstrapped way when you're actually bootstrapped, it's super healthy as a way of managing your first days.
Definitely. I guess, how have you seen other SMBs or startups bleed cash? What are some common ways that you've seen that happen?
I think it also depends on the industries you're in, the type of business, the way you're structured as a company. But one thing that I always recommend to founders or other people that could come and share and ask for tips is to not be too quick in signing fixed costs, because those are costs that you'll have to face independently on the activity of your business. And in some cases, they might be necessary. You might need to hire more people. You might need to hire a bigger office space. But I think you should always be careful in when you sign those costs, not to be too soon in making that decision. You should really see the upsides of doing those investments and what are also the disadvantages. You should always be very rational about that, and maybe put the revenues ahead of actually signing those costs. At least this comes from my career that was marked from initial big availability of cash, growth, and then marked by events like COVID crisis, the inflations, and all the current economic situation that puts a bit of precaution in your approach. But I think those fixed costs can really be a hurdle to manage when difficult time comes.
Definitely, yeah. And I think a lot of companies, too easily hire people, and then they're too readily able to let them go. So you see that with a lot of tech companies too. They'll overhire for positions, and then an economic downturn happens, and they just let a bunch of people go. It's but if they would have better managed it at the beginning, maybe they wouldn't have hired all those positions that they didn't have enough work for, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think as you grow as a company, it's very easy to fall into the trap of overhiring. We want to grow, we want to go fast, so we need to add a bunch of salespeople there, more engineers. I think it's important to have, when we were at BlaBlaCar, we had a hiring committee that was composed of different teams. P&A was in it, CFO, HR, and every new hire had to go through a kind of challenge of the process, and many companies do that. And I think you really need to have a structured way of making these decisions, because otherwise you end up in those bad situations where you find yourself overhiring and you need to take the terrible decision of letting someone go.
Yeah, because a lot of people kind of base their career on you too, right? So you got to kind of keep that in mind, right? So the other way I've seen a lot of people bleed cash, it's advertising or spending too much money on marketing before they've really figured out product market fit, or really realize that there's a return on ad spend in that regard. Have you seen a kind of similar thing with a lot of startups?
Absolutely, and I won't lie, it's a mistake that we were about to make as well when we started out Dokin. We were like, okay, we have some ideas in mind, we're going to test with some ads, but the truth is that until you haven't really figured out your ideal persona, product market fit, and you really have in mind, you really have already figured out a way to make your campaigns work, you end up doing just wasting money on bidding wars on your Google ads or your Facebook ads and stuff like that. I think there again, you need to be very careful, do it at the right timing, right moment, on some specific actions that can really leverage, can help you leverage really revenue from those investments.
Yeah, I've seen a lot spent on like PR, for instance, right? I mean, if you're getting great PR, it's great to have some logos on your website. It adds a lot of credibility. But You could spend a lot of money on PR and it could generate a lot of nothing sometimes. And, I see a lot of startups really, focus so much on trying to get their brand out there so much. And I guess the ego or vanity around having, TechCrunch logos on their website that they'll dump a bunch of money into PR and never really actually get much out of it.
Yeah,
Um, not realizing that maybe their product might not be as, story worthy initially. Right. Um,
absolutely.
and some PR company, the wrong ones will take your money for it.
Yeah.
They'll say,
And,
"Oh,
and I think when you're a founder, there's so many ways of
mhm,
wasting your money.
yeah,
A lot of people are coming after your money, especially weirdly enough when you maybe don't have as many as you should. They
mhm,
come after your money. So it's, cash, as we mentioned, is super important. So you should be, there's a time for everything. You should be very careful on the way you spend it.
absolutely, yeah." Because a lot of times they'll track the companies that are raising money and they'll say, "Congratulations on your raise. Would you like to spend some money?"
Exactly.
I guess lack of organization is another big key concern I've seen for companies, and one of the reasons a lot of companies fail as well. How does data management come into play to prevent that? Since you've kind of experienced that yourself in the financial industry, and the reason why you started Dokin.
Yeah. I think, one of the first important career lessons, but also when we started out Dokin, we spoke with some, we had the lack of having some good advisors, and people are happy to help us,
Mm,
both when you're starting out as a company, but also once you grow. You're going to try out a lot of things, and that's important. It can be energy consuming, but it's important to try out new things as long as you're able to measure their effectiveness.
yeah,
And I think that's something you should be doing from day one. We were lucky enough to have good advice on this. Um, from day one at Dokin, we started try testing out many things, many channels, many ways of going into market, but we measure everything. So we make sure that we give ourselves some time frames of a couple of months, 3 months, and see how every channel is actually doing. Because it doesn't matter really the stage where you are at. It's important that you have the right data framework to measure all of your actions, that you gather the right data, first of all, that it's really relevant to you and that helps you measure your go-to-market strategy and also your financial situation, and make sure that you're always on track and able to take the right decisions based on that. So this is, I think, something that it's especially at the beginning, it's very hard to implement because you're busy with so many things and you're like, yeah, it's fine, I'm gonna reach out on people on LinkedIn, I'm gonna send a bunch of emails,
yeah,
I'm gonna do some advertising, etc. But you should really take a step back, make sure that you have a right data framework that allows you to manage and understand how many emails have you sent, what's your effectiveness rate there, how many meetings are you booking, how much are you spending on your ads, what is this returning to, how's your CTA performing on your landing page, all a bunch of stuff that really helps you understand the right channels that you should prioritize, for example, in the future.
Yeah, documentation helps for everything too. So especially as your company grows, you're able to look back in time and see what works, what doesn't work, and having a consistent framework across the entire company is really key too, right? So everybody's measuring the same, KPIs, especially when it comes to sales, marketing, and communicating that to the CEO and vice versa. Everybody's kind of aligned, trying to drive the same business goals, but it all starts with having that framework in place at the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess what other kind of other common operations mistakes you see a lot of founders make?
Think I think there's several ones. Depends really on the stage. I think at the beginning, the risk is really wasting your energies on doing plenty of things. And I think that's why it's important to be able to measure everything, because you might try new things, and at some point you'll have to focus because you're a human, and it makes sense to investing on things that really bring you more users, more clients, and convert better.
Yeah.
So at the beginning, I think the issue is mostly you lack time, you're trying to make sales, and so you end up doing a lot of different things and draining your energies. Um, Also, at the beginning, we mentioned the fact of wanting to appeal to too many audiences, and I think that's also a big operational risk at the beginning, because you end up building a product that's a bit of a Frankenstein. You have a bunch of features that don't have sense, and you're wasting a lot of time building new features, creating new features, while you should really be focusing first on understanding your target and then building something behind that. And I think as you grow, you start hiring, having a bunch of different teams. I think one of the issues is really aligning all those teams, particularly when it comes to your strategy, your go-to-market, and having data that somehow is spread in the right way between those teams, and avoid the really data silos. For example, when we were at BlaBlaCar, we had a lot of we're a bad company. We had a lot of budgets. We had a lot of software, but it wasn't always easy getting the right data and sharing the right information between the different teams.
Yep.
And this is something that, operationally can be very time-consuming and bring also a risk of not making the right decisions.
Yep. I guess what kind of tools do you commonly see integrated with, say, your platform? I guess what tools are a lot of other startups using to integrate their data?
So I see a lot of so right now, for example, in Dokin, we integrate with more than 20 applications. It goes from the CRMs, marketing channels, or SQL databases mostly. And I think that depending on the type of business that you are, having a CRM, for example, very early on can look like an overkill, but I think it's very helpful in structuring the way you go after your market. You book your calls, you book your demos. Helps you give you, again, that structure from day one to understand how effective you are in your go-to-market. So I think if you're sales driven, it's really about that, and yet also in general, really having a good understanding of the traffic on your landing page. How is that converting? Where are the sources where it's coming from? And making sure that you pay an attention on the way you're speaking with your targets there.
That's a good point. So I guess failure comes with any profession. Can you tell us maybe about a time that you failed and what you learned from it?
I mean, there's of course a lot of failures that I think I've been through and I still go through. Maybe the most painful ones, and the ones that can really hurt, both from a moral perspective, but also from from a team perspective, from a company perspective, can be the not hiring the right person, like somebody who's not necessarily aligned with the values of your team or the company. I think that the cost of a bad hire can really translate into moral frustrations, not just for the person that you hire, but also for their teammates, for the team more in general. So I think that it's not an easy task, but it's very important at the beginning to focus on understanding whether there's an alignment of values between the hire and the team, because this can then have bigger costs when things go wrong.
Yeah, definitely, especially for early stage startups, the core team is so important. If you get that right, it's a lot easier to stick everything else from there. I guess, do you have any tips for interviewing such individuals to kind of pull out whether they have a vision alignment or they're the right fit for your company?
I think that nowadays something that I'm seeing is that a lot in terms of hiring is done. We test a lot the technical skills. Normally when you go through a hiring process, there's a bunch of questions you have to answer. You send your CVs, and then there's a case study you do first. So technical skills are very well tested. But I think we should really spend time on having more informal setups between the person who's being hired and the current existing team to really see if they share values, they share a common work ethic, a way of doing things
Yeah.
that can go on for the long run. I've seen, for example, in the past, some companies where you had really a couple of hours where the new hire, I mean the prospect hire, was
Yeah.
coming into the office and just sharing a cup of coffee with the team.
Yeah.
Really 2 hours where the team could ask any questions, they could share any ways they work together, have kind of a kind of set workshop together,
Yeah.
where they share the ways of working, their past, their future, their visions, and that really helps making the decision.
Yep.
Then of course you're not always protected from things going wrong, but I think it's really something that is worth doing, especially at the beginning, especially when it comes, as you said, to the core team, because this can really hurt you if things go wrong.
Yeah, that's a great point. Definitely, it's not just like a CEO to new hire interview, but just to have them interview other people that they'd be working with on a regular basis. Also ensure that, maybe they should interview with other people on the team that they might not be working directly with, but, over time, maybe, they might come across their way and have to work together. But getting those, multiple viewpoints from employees will really help tell you as well if that person's a good fit or not.
Yeah. And I remember when I was a BlaBlaCar, I wasn't one of the first hires, but still, as part of the process, we had a call with our CEO at the time, and it was a easy call, just 30 minutes, but it was important to keep that advice from the CEO to understand if the person was really aligned with the values of the company. And I think that as a founder, it's important to keep that approach, to care for the people that are being hired, to really understand if the new additions to the team are aligned with the vision that you have.
That's a great point. I guess, what other challenges did you face as a company, and how did you overcome them?
I think launching a startup is a daily challenge, really.
It's fun.
Every day there's a new one. And, I was joking with my co-founder, Virginie, that I'm very worried if something goes well, because it means that there's something bad right after coming. Because sometimes right after you have a success, you have a major step back that you have to work on again. I think at the beginning, the issue is really getting into the market, really getting to your target, making sure that you're having those important conversations that you need to have with your target users, with your first user, signing the first customers. I think this was initially the challenge. Now the challenge that we have, it's mostly being able to match demand that is growing at a higher pace than we expected, and bringing the product to the level that is expected from the new demand that is incoming. So it's a really tricky point, because you need to be able to bring in new leads, new users, new customers, and at the same time being able to deliver really quickly on the product side. Because, for example, if you have some minor bugs and a lead went through your acquisition funnel and then they meet this bug, maybe you lose them forever. So you need to be able to step up your game from the technical point of view, but also from the acquisition side, to make sure that they match.
Yeah, that's a great point. Early stage, you could, maybe hustle in a few, friends and customers, people that you know. But, as you look to scale your company, all those details really matter, right? So that initial experience in the UX, if somebody runs into a bug, they just assume your whole company doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly.
They have no relationship with you. And, a lot of people don't have the time to waste to try to figure stuff out. Unless you're solving a really, painful problem for them. Most people just kind of forget about your company and move on. So yeah, you make a good point about that growth period where you really have to get those details in line for your company, making sure the product is, A plus, the customer experience is great. All of your communication, the way you talk to your customers is all aligned as well too. That's really important. So there's consistency in the messaging there too.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think at the beginning it's a tough job, because it's easy to get drawn into the wheel of making new sales and going after so many things, so many new leads, and then putting pressure on the product side where you want to
Build all this.
features, and at the end you end up with something that is not really answering to the pains of no one.
Yeah, I've been there before too. Yeah, you can't be the the jack of all trades and the master of none. So I guess what are the key takeaways would you like our audience to know about Dokin and why they should choose your service?
Well, I think if you're using data in functions like marketing, sales, operations, I feel your pain. I've been through what you're going through. I know that it can be a challenge sometimes to have a clear overview of your go-to-market data and really make sense to it. Come give Dokin a try. We're really trying to build a product that answers to your needs and allows you to have a 360 view of your go-to-market strategy. We're curious to hear feedback. We're curious to hear how we can really improve your life. So give it a try. I'd be happy to have a chat with you and see how we can help.
Right. And if anybody's interested in getting their document management aligned and looking to scale their company, because like we mentioned earlier, you got to get all that stuff done early on. The sooner the better. You can grab it today in the NachoNacho marketplace, the best place to buy SaaS. I believe you guys have it for 30% cash back right now.
Exactly, 30% cash back. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, sounds like a great product, and it's great to meet you in person, Jacopo, and looking forward to meet you in person, hopefully in Europe this next time.
Absolutely. It was great to meeting you too and chat with you. And really happy to have had this chat.
Likewise. Thanks, Jacopo. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you.